That's never a good sign, but okay, I'm on the air. Hello, everyone joining me right now. As I get my last few buttons pressed and we can get started with this show. This is the 3 Levels of Football. I'm Isaiah Roser. Thank you for joining me. The 3 Levels of Football, where I talk about pretty much everything besides football. It used to be football, but it's kind of gone away from there since football seasons have pretty much come to an end. We still do have a little bit more football to discuss, but in general, as you know, pretty much done with football season. I'm riding solo for the first segment of the show, 4-segment show for an hour here, and then we'll have Trevor Martin, my good friend from Cardinal Sports Live, joining me for the last 3 segments. I'm going to go ahead and start off with some Ball State sports, and I do have some audio clips for that as well. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start off with probably the sport that was the most disappointing over the last week, and that is men's basketball. They did win their most recent game, beating Northern Illinois 87-69, but a big loss to Buffalo. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how it went down with some calls from SportsLink Digital. All right, pretty sure nothing's playing right now, so we'll try that again. Should probably turn on the computer that plays that thing. So let's try that again.
Some ball insecurity going on right now for the Cardinals.
And this time it should be playing.
Driving on Mickey Pearson, beautiful fake there, as rebounded by LaQuil Hardnett. Looks like he wanted an out-of-bounds call. Looked like a turnover. Passed over to Curtis Jones, who hits a 3. And Curtis Jones certainly having a hot hand here, as he's got 14.
And that hurts. Those second chance points, 8-0 Buffalo in favor. That's why they're up by 21 right now.
All right, so that was Dane Massey with the play-by-play, Andrew Willett with the color commentary on SL Digital Radio. Ball State off to a really bad start, as you could hear in that game. And then in the second half, there was some hope for Ball State as they started to make a bit of a comeback.
He passed over to Isaiah Adams in the corner. Adams gets the ball stripped away and stolen by Demarius Jacobs. Here come the Cardinals the other way. Back out to Coleman, who has a wide open 3 and hits. Jerron Coleman starting to come alive in this second half. He's got 16.
Just one of those nights for Buddy Coleman.
And just like that, it's a 10-point game as this crowd.
Again, Dane Massey and Andrew Willett on SportsLink Digital. That was the closest it got all game. Ended up losing. Ball State did 91-65 to Buffalo. Their first loss, their first loss at home of the season at least, and a brutal one at that. They did beat Northern Illinois in their most recent outing, 87-69 on Friday, and their next game tomorrow, an away one against Bowling Green. So moving on to women's basketball, a little bit better of a week for them. They played Akron. That was their most recent home game. And this is one of the highlights, one of many highlights from that one.
Becky with it now, driving to the basket, puts it up, and it's good. What a move by Becky.
The black-eyed warrior, my goodness. Not letting it affect her there. It seems like she has one of those every game where she's able to elude the defense, put multiple defenders on her back, and finish. My goodness, Allie Becky, what a finish.
Yeah, great game overall for the women's basketball team. They beat Akron 89-66. That was Ryan Sojets and with the play-by-play and AJ Switek with the color commentary. Their next game will be against Northern Illinois on Wednesday. And now the last sport I want to cover from Ball State is the men's volleyball team. This first one against Queen's University of Charlotte. Here's the final point from that one.
But you're right. A point here, and it would be 25-15 every set. Lots of noise.
Leitao serving for Queens. Cardinals control. Flores sets left. Denies she, and the Cardinals with the sweep, 25-15.
So yeah, as you heard, a 3-0 sweep of Queens University. That was Donnie Harbin with the play-by-play and Griffin Leonard with the color commentary. And finally, the most recent men's volleyball game was against Sacred Heart University, also a home one.
And now the Cardinals 1 point away from looking forward to BYU.
Here we are at match point.
Over the net. Felix Egareva lays the hammer and finishes this match in style after a return in 1 hit from Sacred Heart. Wow. That is kind of the mantra for this entire outing. Felix Egareva, right place, right time, delivers the hammer, and the Cardinals walk away with a sweep.
Yeah, 2 sweeps in a row there for Ball State. So yeah, overall, fairly successful last week for Ball State athletics. So men's basketball still with a fantastic record, as is women's basketball, and the volleyball team off to a great start as well. An exciting time for Ball State sports. Well, that was the shortest segment in my show's history, but we're going to end it now. We'll have Trevor Martin on the other side.
Of that relationship.
65 Americans a day die by gun suicide. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn more at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
Hey, son, how are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it.
When your kid can't find the language, find the lyrics. Start a conversation at soundidouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
All right, welcome back to the 3 Levels of Football. I'm Isaiah Rozier. Now I'm joined by Trevor Martin. Trevor, thank you once again for your coming on the show for your 3rd time.
Oh, of course, Isaiah. I really enjoyed doing this. I love breaking down any sport we're talking about. First off, NFL, then maybe some Pacers. So really looking forward to tonight again.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, to all my listeners, I do apologize for some of the technical difficulties I'm going through. I should probably, maybe I need to write a list of things you need to do to get everything ready, because there's so many buttons and I forget to press all of them at times. But all seems good right now. So we will go ahead and start off with the NFL. As Trevor was saying, what a day of games that was. I mean, great games, but at the same time, maybe not as good as last year. Let's go ahead and start with the first one. Eagles, 49ers, 31-7, Eagles victory.
Yeah, Isaiah, I mean, and just in that game itself, I was just very shocked, because I know, Rizzo obviously joined us last week, and we're all talking about how we thought that might be even the better game of the weekend, honestly, with those two Eagles and Niners, the top 2 teams in the NFC, and shocked with the result, obviously. I mean, I thought the Eagles, I think I mentioned last week, had the advantage, obviously, with being at home, of course, but 31-7, not the result I think any of us really expected. But to win like that, 31-7, was definitely a resounding win. I think that just shows. That's why I think a lot of people think the AFC is the stronger conference, and I would maybe agree with that. But I think the way the Eagles played, the dominating the Giants the week beforehand, dominating the Niners, I think they're maybe the team to beat. I think we're going to see obviously the big storyline we'll talk about later maybe, but the Kelce Bowl, of course, Travis Kelce, the tight end for the Chiefs, and of course for the Eagles, the center Jason Kelce for the Eagles. And so I really think we're going to see an interesting game here. And I guess we got a couple weeks till the Super Bowl, but yeah, that first game definitely, Isaiah, not the result I expected. But actually, I was looking at some stats here before I went on air here. And what's interesting to note is that Jalen Hurts had a really good game, 15 for 25, 121 yards, but no touchdowns. And didn't have any interceptions either, but all the touchdowns came on the ground for the Eagles, so 4 rushing touchdowns. Miles Sanders, of course, leading the way with 2 of those. So the Eagles definitely a team I think to look out for. I mean, they're obviously going to sunny and warm Arizona. Both teams, I guess it's nice because they were both, Philadelphia and Kansas City, not really warm cities, so now they're going to go inside and Glendale, Phoenix, Arizona. And I think it'll be a really good game between, obviously, the 2 best teams in the NFL. They were best teams all season, number 1 seed AFC for the Chiefs, number 1 seed in the NFC with the Eagles. So I think we're going to see a heck of a game here in a couple weeks. But again, Eagles, maybe I would say, maybe early line have the advantage just because of the dismantling of the Niners by 24 points, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say I don't know how much you can really take from that game, to be honest. I mean, I think it was just a disappointment for most, and for anyone except for Eagles fans. I mean, you never want to see them have to resort to what they did. What are they on their 4th string quarterback? You have
that's true.
Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, and then who was it? Josh Johnson.
Josh Johnson, yeah.
And he,
exactly.
I mean,
I think he's been, I remember Isaiah, I think on the broadcast they were saying 13 years in the league or 14 years, and he's been with 13 teams. So he's been with a team almost every year. So yeah, you're right. I guess you can't take a ton from that game just because of, having to go to because I was thinking the Colts started 3 quarterbacks this year, and the Niners, I guess, topped us with needing 4. So that's an interesting, stat line to mention. But it was all just based on injuries. I mean, the Colts, a little bit of injuries there, but obviously just a lot of kind of quarterback carousel. But yeah, with the Niners, it's just so unfortunate because I think if Brock Purdy stays healthy throughout the entire game, I know he did come back after his elbow injury, but if he stays in the entire time, I think we would be talking about a much closer game than obviously we did see in that first game yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I would even say that, the thing with the 49ers is that, I mean, I've always seen them as the team that doesn't necessarily need a good quarterback. So I still thought they had a chance when, that's what I was going to say earlier, I don't know, do you count McCaffrey as a quarterback? Because he did throw a pass, so you could even say 5 quarterbacks.
True, if you do that, because I feel like, obviously we traditionally list him as a running back, but if you throw a pass, I guess even for that one play, maybe just be considered a quarterback for it, yeah.
But either way, I mean, I admire the 49ers. It's kind of what I wanted the Colts to be and thought they were for a while, a team that can just put anyone out there and win games, but there are limits to that. You're unfortunately not usually going to win a conference championship game with your 4th string quarterback. That's asking a lot.
It is. Oh, for sure. And I think even Brock Purdy could have stayed. He would have been the first rookie quarterback to ever win a conference championship too. So that would have been just cool to, be able to maybe see him do that since he obviously started the game, but obviously wasn't to be. But I thought, the Niners, if it wasn't, like I said earlier, if it wasn't for him being injured, I really think it would have been a much closer game, and, maybe they would be obviously going to the Super Bowl too. So, but again, I guess give credit to the Eagles. They took advantage of the situation, of course, and maybe, kind of fell in their lap a little bit with Josh Johnson, probably not really getting many reps. You'd think as if he started out, 3rd string quarterback, 4th string probably, and then just kind of had to sign him and didn't have a whole lot of preparation time. Not that he needed it. Obviously, he's been kind of a vet for a long time, but maybe getting familiar with the system with the Niners and stuff. And you don't want to be thrown into a situation like that in a conference championship, of course, on the road. Eagles fans obviously were out in full force of capacity crowd. I think almost 70,000 on hand. So definitely a tough environment to play in, and the temperature obviously actually wasn't super bad, but you had a little bit of light rain throughout the game too, so that maybe was a factor as well. But again, Eagles, no discredit to them. They obviously earned that win in dominating fashion. But that's good. On radio, we gotta have a little bit of debate, right? And that's why I think. But I think the week before maybe shows more of that when the division round. They really did with the Giants. A team that was healthy. Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones beating the Vikings the week before, and on the road. So they were obviously road warriors. The Giants were, and they, I don't know. But so that's why I think the AFC is still the better conference, and probably the Chiefs have the advantage in that AFC championship, or in the Super Bowl rather, against the Eagles. But I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll be. Obviously everyone hopes for a really good game. It's the game that even if you don't watch football much of the year, you're going to watch the Super Bowl because the commercials obviously are popular and famous for that reason. So we'll see how that game. Obviously both teams have a lot of time to prepare. I think the Chiefs are going to need that more so than the Eagles, just because obviously Kelsey battled a back injury. I think throughout the week he was able to play. Mahomes same deal, but they're going to be really liking the kind of week off they'll have for the Pro Bowl, the week between conference championships and the Super Bowl. So I think both teams will need to get healthy, but the Chiefs more so than the Eagles for sure.
Hey, if anyone that works at WCRD is listening, I absolutely love doing this radio show, but I did pay $25 to do it, so I feel like I can say this. We need a new headphone slot thing, because my headphone keeps slipping out, and if it's slipped out too much, you can only hear it in the left ear. Put it a little bit more, it's only the right ear. Put the just right amount, you can hear it perfectly, and put it too far in, you can't hear it at all. So
wow.
I've been struggling to hear both of us this whole time, at times making Trevor just talk. Now it's good, but
okay.
There's my little complaint about our wonderful radio station at Ball State, which I am very glad to be able to do radio, but that is one small thing that maybe you could.
Yes, but thankfully it's just a small thing, right? It's nothing major, nothing's going wrong. The board looks fine, everything looks good.
I mean, they do need to fix the telephone thing, but anyway.
But anyway, I guess we're not taking calls, right? I guess we're okay. But.
Right now, yeah. So I would say, I mean, Yeah, I was giving you a hard time about saying that they didn't necessarily deserve it, but at the same time, I mean, they can't control when there's injuries happening. They did what they needed to do, which is only get 269 yards on offense and somehow score 31 points.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like I said, I think it was just all on the ground attack, obviously, but wouldn't think. I mean, they're just running at the right time, or they got Jalen Hurts had I think one rushing touchdown. He just kind of quarterback sneaked it in.
Even that only 148 rushing yards.
Yeah, so that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's kind of like I feel like I was talking about a game earlier. Sometimes you look at the stat line and it looks like maybe the favor in the Niners, or at least you didn't think looking at the stats it wouldn't have been that much of a blowout win, but obviously score indicated differently than the stats showed, which I guess just is again maybe a credit to their ability to just score at the right moments and not turn the ball over like we mentioned earlier. With Jalen Hurts, no turnovers. So yeah.
Story of that game: quarterback injuries ruined football. There's not too many sport. I mean, really, that is the most important position in any sport. I mean, basketball, it could ruin a series if the star player is injured. Yes. But that's just because of how few players you have, though. I mean, baseball, if your star player's out, you still have a chance. Obviously, it hurts, but soccer, if you take any club and take up their best player, they still have a chance. Let me think. Like right now, the best club probably Manchester City. You take out any one player, they absolutely. I'm not saying they're the best club, but it doesn't ruin their team. I mean, the 49ers. I feel like the Colts would have had a chance against yesterday's 49ers.
No, you're right. Well, I just think about too. I mean, Isaiah, since we're both Colts fans, I feel like I can say this. The Colts 1 point away from beating the Eagles. And also beat the Chiefs. That's something I just thought about. It's like,
oh yeah.
I mean, think about it for a second.
That's right.
The Colts are a team that won 4 games all season. I know, you could say the game was kind of given away. Chris Jones had that late penalty at the defensive lineman for the Chiefs. But it was week 4. Jim Nance, Tony Romo, the number 1 CBS crew on the call in Indy. Colts somehow win that game 20-17. I was very excited. Of course, we saw a lot of hope. It was our
that was the best part. Right? That was the best part of the season.
Oh yeah. And then then you think I mean the Eagles, and I think it was the Eagles and Redskins or the Commanders now, both games 17-16. I mean we were 1 point away from the win, right? So so 1 point away from beating the team that won the NFC Championship and beating a team by 3 that won the AFC Championship. So yeah, you can't say. I know some teams have said, if we could beat the Chiefs, then we should be in the Super Bowl. It's like there's no way, obviously, that could happen. But it's just kind of crazy to think that these teams were maybe not vulnerable, but at the right times, the Colts were playing well enough. It was earlier on in the season when the Colts, didn't lose the last few games in a row in the end of the season. So it's just crazy to think that these teams, the Colts actually had a chance against. So back to your point, I think the Colts would have had a chance maybe against the depleted team like the Niners had, obviously, the quarterback position yesterday. So
I mean that is the fun of football, though, right? There's so much parity, especially in the NFL. Yep. Maybe not as much in college and high school, but definitely in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, every year there's a string that someone finds of teams where if you take one team to beat another team and that team beats someone else, you can always go all the way around and have someone that beat that team. Like it happens every year.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I mean, maybe not when there's like an undefeated team in the rare occasion, but almost every year it happens.
Yeah, no, you're right. I agree. Yep, for sure.
But yeah, we should go ahead and talk about the more exciing game, shouldn't we?
Yes, I agree.
Chiefs Bengals 23-20, a Kansas City win, just as I predicted against both you and Rizzo, although I think
that's right.
I think I did say 49ers to win, to be fair.
Okay, so we just got one right. We were 1-1 on the weekend.
Right.
So, yeah.
But Chiefs, man, that was a close game, but at the same time, it wasn't, to me at least, it wasn't nearly as exciting as maybe a few of the playoff games last year.
I agree. Yeah, and actually, I was just thinking too. There was something interesting. I know that I think actually Jim Nance mentioned on the call last night about how we were, the Chiefs. I mean, besides that penalty, of course, at the end of the game, that that late hit out of bounds, that game could have gone to overtime, which would have been interesting because we would have seen the first, with the new playoff rules, which I thought might be interesting, and we'll see. I mean, I don't know if we'll get that in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's obviously a ways off.
That'd be
fun. That would be interesting to see because obviously they implemented the new rules after last year's Bills Chiefs game. So that was just something to mention, just because it was really close to being able to maybe see that. We didn't, of course, but yeah, no, I thought that was a really obviously entertaining game. Obviously much more than the first one, but yeah, I think and I think part of the reason I know I talked about, or maybe we didn't know about it maybe last week, but I remember thinking this week, maybe in anticipation for this show about how the Chiefs fans and really, I guess, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, a lot of the players, kind of threw Burrowhead back in the face, of course, the Bengals, because they were kind of claiming, we've won 3 in a row against Mahomes in Kansas City, like we can do it again. But it's like I just had a different feeling. So honestly, Isaiah, I know you were obviously, Rizzo and I remember clearly both predicting the Bengals to win that game, which obviously didn't happen. But again, I think that I just thought that maybe if not the critics, but just that kind of the tricklings in of saying the Burrowhead Stadium, I think that was definitely a motivation for the Chiefs. Aside from other things, of course, that was not the only reason why. I mean, they wanted to win. It was their 5th straight AFC Championship at home, which I think just shows obviously the complete domination they've had to be the number 1 seed, or at least the higher seed every step of the way, to be able to host 5 straight AFC Championships, which is in itself astounding and crazy.
Have they hosted 5 straight?
I think, I believe they have.
Wow.
Yeah, so I know that's the thing.
I knew they'd played in 5 straight, but I didn't realize they hosted all of them.
I think that, because I'm trying to think. I mean, I think they've always been at least the number 1 seed, or maybe they were number 2 and number 3-1, or they knocked off number 1 team. So I think I did see that. And that's astounding itself, obviously, which is a reason that they can have won is there now third straight Super Bowl, third Super Bowl in the last 4 years. So I mean, they've done it consistently, and I think with the team they have in place, I mean, you think they even lost Tyreek Hill, and look what they still were able to do. But that just shows how impressive and how big of a part Travis Kelce has in that team. Of course, I mean, we didn't know if he was going to be 100%. Mahomes obviously took not shots, but I remember he kind of there were some angles they showed up with his ankle when he was kind of grimacing a couple times, hopping off after some of the plays just because he was battling an injury throughout the entire game. Obviously, I mean, they didn't even think maybe he'd even play. I mean, you knew in a game like that he's not going to miss. He's Patrick Mahomes, but who knew if he'd be 100%? And he didn't. I mean, he might have been 90%, but he did look really good. Obviously taped up his ankles quite a bit, but now, like we mentioned earlier, it's good that he's going to have some time to rest, and even Kelce to do the same, to be able to hopefully be, for them, I guess, if you're a Chiefs fan, to be 100% back when it comes time here in a couple weeks for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, for the overtime rules, you don't want to get me started on that, because, oh man, I absolutely hated the old overtime rules.
I agree. Well, honestly, I think they should implement, I've been a fan of this since we're talking about it. I think we should I'm a big college football fan too. I honestly think they should implement that in the NFL, because that way, you allow for a lot more scoring opportunities, but you get the ball at the 25-yard line from your opponent. So you get 25 yards, I mean, it's 1st and 10, and you just get a drive that starts, so shouldn't be too hard to score. And then, then you have obviously probably a chance for more overtimes, because it's not hard for NFL teams to score, and they already have driven almost 75 yards down the field.
I would move it back probably. Maybe start at the 50, or 50. even maybe at your own 25. I'd be that might take too long.
Well, I think that's the reason it just goes quicker. But I think what I like too about obviously
50,
but what I like about college football is I think once it starts with a third overtime, then it's literally just alternating, which maybe seems redundant, but alternating 2-point conversions, which I think is interesting, because then it's like, okay, who's got the better offensive coordinator, who can draw up the best play, maybe a double reverse, or whose defense can stand up. I think that's what I like about it too, is like, you play a couple overtimes with your regular rules, but I think even the only overtime that you could say in college football is normal is the first one where you can kick a PAT, because starting with the second one, you have to go for 2 to try to see if, then you can battle it out. And then, of course, third overtime is just back and forth 2-point conversion. So I just think I don't know, I guess I kind of like that structure, just because I think we can both say this. Ties in the NFL really should not exist. I mean, the Colts obviously fell victim to that this year, and we thought maybe there was a chance for a second tie, which obviously would not have wanted to see, because we looked at it. I remember one time it's never happened in the history of the league, so I'm glad it didn't happen this year to the Colts. But just kind of see. I mean, what would it have affected the Colts? Probably would have gone to 4-13, maybe 5-12, instead of having that 1 in the third column there for the ties. But either way, I think the playoff rules. I love how that's obviously adapted so both teams get a chance, because you don't want your defense, like for the Bills defense, for example, was out there and then had to defend Mahomes again. So I mean, it's a lot to ask for a defense. I mean, you do get maybe the TV timeout or so in between, but that's not a lot of time to be off the field, obviously.
And by the way, to anyone listening, because I'm happy you didn't say this, Trevor, but there are definitely people I've talked to, both online and in person, that will say, well, you have to look at both offense, and you can't just only have offense. You have to have defense in the game. That's why we should keep it the old way. No, that makes 0 sense.
Yeah.
Here's why. Because first of all, just saying just stop them is ridiculous, because you don't know if the other team would have scored. Also, would you be okay with a rule that you start at the opponent 1 yard line, and if you score, you win the game? No, of course you wouldn't be, because you realize it's way too easy.
Yes.
But you're just ignoring the fact that it still can be considered too easy to score the whole field when it's a very offensive game. Secondly, we need both offense and defense. Okay, so we're letting both offenses and defenses play. Like, how does that only affect offense? If you let a touchdown win it without the other team having a chance to respond, then you're not letting both teams' offense and defense play. You're just letting one offense play
and
against one defense.
That's right, exactly.
So, and I mean, I know the statistics say it's actually not that unfair in the regular season, but if you have a really offensive game, then it's gonna, I think it was like 51 or 53%, something like that. But if it's a really offensive game, you kind of go into overtime knowing it's more like 70% or something, and that's why in the playoffs you have those offensive teams that are more likely to make the playoffs. So you're gonna have a much higher percentage there. I think it was over 80, if I recall correctly.
I think you're right.
Why they had to change it.
Well, I think it's kind of, when you think about that too, I feel like it's kind of sad that maybe it took a game like the Bills and Chiefs, where obviously the Bills thought they would have a chance. I mean, you had Josh Allen against Patrick Mahomes, 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league for sure in the AFC, and it took a game like that where the Chiefs won because they had 2 straight offensive possessions to then kind of change their role. Like we're talking about, you would think this maybe would have been adapted 10, 15 years ago, just maybe in the offseason, maybe some other time, but you wouldn't think it would have taken maybe a game like that. I'm glad that it did change because of that reason, but it kind of maybe stinks that it had to take a game like that to change that kind of rule, I guess.
Yeah, it does seem ridiculous. That said, Bills just had to stop Mahomes for 13 seconds. In the fourth
That's very true. That's what I always go back to. It's like, how did they do that? I mean, it's like, I remember I've seen videos of like Kelsey was like saying, "Oh, God, I'm going to do this," and then he threw it right to him, had the timeout. It's just, I mean, like you said, how could they just not stop him there? Because then you would have been able to win the game in overtime or in regulation with not having to go to overtime.
But still, I mean, both teams scored the same amount of points.
Yep.
Even if one team did it in a dumb way, they scored the same amount of points.
Yep.
They should have had an equal opportunity in overtime, and they didn't. One team, I think everyone agrees that if the Bills had gotten the ball first, they most likely would have won. And again, also, here's another argument I hear. Oh, well, the Bengals were able to stop the Chiefs. Okay, I didn't say it was impossible for the Chiefs to lose, but if you give me a dice game and say, okay, I win if I get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you win if you get a 6, and then you're like, oh, that's not fair, and then I'm like, well, I played this other guy and he beat me, so I mean, it's possible. Just gotta roll it better.
That's a 1 out of 6, right? So yeah, that doesn't
right.
make sense because you could say 2, 4, 6, 1, 3, 5. I mean, I guess that'd be more fair, obviously. But
that would be fair. Yeah,
that'd be perfectly fair. So yeah, to say I win 1 through 5, you win a 6.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say the Bills played perfectly. Oh, they did nothing wrong. No, I'm saying, and I know we're going way off topic. We're going all the way back to last year's playoffs. But no, I'm not saying the Bills are perfect. But I'm saying they did not get a fair chance to win that game. And I'm glad they changed it. Hopefully, they also changed it for the regular season. But I mean, playoffs is at least a start.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, I did think for a bit we were going to see that last game. It kind of seemed like it.
Yep, I know, because honestly, I mean, it sounds bad, and I think, not that it goes back to sportsmanship, I don't want to get too much on a rant here, but I remember, seeing the Bengals locker room, there was one player like yelling at I forget, Osai, whatever his last name was, the guy who hit him out of bounds, like, hey, how could you do that? And you probably saw it too. And it was like that kind of moment. I mean, but that guy felt horrible. I mean, of course, they showed, on CBS after the game, like he, bawling his eyes out. There was a coach there trying to comfort him. But it's like, but there were so many, even I think Zach Taylor, they interviewed him at the end of the game too, the Bengals coach, and he was even saying, that's one play you look at, of course, anybody, fan, media, whatever. But really, when you think about it, there's so many other plays that define a game, not just the last one of the game, which obviously people look to, but there were so many other, maybe you could say bad calls by the refs, whatever might have been the case, but that's not the only one that defines the game. Either losing by 3, there's different plays you could have made. Joe Burrow had a couple interceptions, so that's maybe on him a little bit too. So it's not all just on one player. Obviously, I know he feels bad at the end of that game, but again, it comes down to a lot of different plays, and that was obviously just the one that kind of ended it. Because like you were saying, I think we would have seen overtime, Isaiah, if it had not been for that. Because Mahomes, we would have gotten the first down, but they had like 8 seconds left. So
I feel like Mahomes still would have gotten there, to be honest.
That's true, because they would have had one more play probably for a slight little out route or something. It just would have made it more challenging. Of course, then you get the penalty, advance it, and then they just kicked it, which I'm honestly kind of surprised. I mean, because I think they had first down, obviously, after the penalty, right? So I was thinking they might have run one more play just to avoid, so it would have been with triple zeros on the clock and not allowed. I mean, 3 seconds, what's the Bengals going to do? They didn't really do much of anything besides
Trevor, I'm just glad you didn't quote him directly. I would have had to hit the dump button.
I know. Yeah, that's why I definitely I quoted. Yeah, I know. I think we both know what he said, but I did not want to say that, obviously.
By the way, update on the dump button. Not really an update, more like my personal theory or hypothesis, however you want to say it. Okay, and if anyone was listening on the radio, all right, contact me, IsaiahRosner@gmail.com, to let me know if you heard this last week. I'm sure I'll get hundreds of emails, but so I think the dump button did. So first of all, I listened back to the recording of the stream that I have on my laptop, and it didn't change anything when I hit the dump button, right? So I thought it didn't work. But then I was thinking, it's probably only for the actual radio. So if you listened to it on the radio, let me know if you could hear us saying the words "dang" and "crap" or whatever we said. Those were our mock cuss words. If you could hear us saying those, or if it's just completely normal, or if you could tell it like skipped, because what it should do is it's on a 7-second delay. It should instantly skip to live, so it cuts out 7 seconds essentially. And then I believe it slowly goes back to, it stretches it out to slowly go back to the 7-second delay in case you need to dump more stuff, I guess.
Don't worry, yeah.
But anyway, got that out of the way. But that's good. Chiefs, Bengals, great game. Oh, by the way, one more narrative I want to address, and we were talking about this in our meeting earlier just a little bit. It wasn't about this, but we had a separate meeting. Anyway, a lot of people seem to think that the referees handed the Chiefs that game, and I just don't agree. I mean, I don't think the referees were good by any means. I think they made a lot of mistakes, but if you're handing a team a game, do you really give them give the opposite team like a really like ticky-tacky taunting penalty like that? No one would have been mad if they ignored that, and they called it. They called it against the Chiefs, and yet the Chiefs still won. And I think there was one other play that was kind of maybe not a objectively bad call, but kind of a close call that went against the Chiefs. So I think I feel like it was just bad referees. I don't think it was that one-sided.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there, Isaiah. I mean, obviously, Bengals fans versus Chiefs fans, I think Bengals fans would maybe have more to complain about, but I think I totally agree with you that definitely it was both ways. I mean, I think there was even, maybe because, and I think, I guess they kind of rank, like we've even talked about, announcers in the NFL kind of based on who's playing and what announcer is going to be there. I think that you can maybe say the same thing with referee crews. Nothing against them, but it's like, Colts towards the end of the year probably had the referees that maybe didn't get highly, ranked throughout the season or whatever. But no, I think, but again, I think you'd expect, both ways, but it's an AFC Championship game. You should have whoever was rated the highest of the season, which probably I think was the crew that was doing that game. But I think just there were times that, like you mentioned, a taunting penalty, which was probably valid. I mean, I think I remember seeing a gesture, maybe said something, I don't know. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there's both ways, honestly, just maybe lack of calls or obviously, too many, maybe one side. I'm sure both teams would, again, have something to say about that. But yeah, I think in that kind of moment, you just have to make sure you kind of, and I know it's hard, in a moment. I mean, I know I could never really imagine myself in that moment, but a lot of those, referees have been there 5, 10, 15 years. And so they've done these games before, this kind of high magnitude and big magnitude of game to go to the Super Bowl. So I think, in that kind of moment, you maybe expect more from the referees than maybe we got in yesterday's game. I guess, I was watching the games, I guess I didn't really have, much. I mean, I wasn't rooting, I guess, for either team, and maybe the Bengals a little bit, but I didn't really care, I guess, either way. So yeah, I guess it was, from my perspective, there were definitely some calls that were probably missed, or others that, just frankly were called and maybe shouldn't have been. So I think it works both ways. But yeah, I think maybe in that kind of environment, maybe expecting more from the officials than maybe we got yesterday would be the best thing to say, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're going to take a break. We'll come back with a preview of the Super Bowl, as well as some, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, we got weather update first, but break first. Thank you for joining us.
Olivia from Washington. Laid off and trying to keep our little kids from realizing that mommy and daddy haven't eaten in a while.
Roger from California. I'm grateful we could afford our son's surgery. I'm nervous that now we can't really afford food.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Keisha from South Carolina. I've been skipping meals so my 2 kids can eat, but filling up on water doesn't really work.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
What kind of guy are you into?
I like a guy who's always better. I like a guy who's into WCRD 91.3.
Welcome back to the 3 levels of football here on 91.3 WCRD. I'm Isaiah Rosner here with Trevor Martin. But first, before we get back into the sports, we have to do a weather update. I should probably type it into my computer before the segment starts, but here we go. 23 degrees right now in Muncie. There's a 2% chance of precipitation in the next 2 hours, so might want to bring your umbrella. 72% humidity. I didn't even know humidity existed when it was freezing.
Yeah, I don't get that, but okay. Yeah, somehow.
10-mile-per-hour wind. Definitely, you can feel the wind out there. But yeah, it's not going to precipitate very much. Actually, it goes all the way up to 4%.
Wow.
At 4 a.m. So if you're out at 4 a.m., careful. Wind will go down to 9 miles per hour at 11 p.m., then down to 7 miles per hour at 2 a.m., and it will stay like that until 8 a.m. when it will go down to 6 miles per hour. So yeah. Tomorrow, Tuesday, high of 24, low of 13, partly cloudy. Wednesday, high of 30, low of 21, partly cloudy. Thursday, high of 40, low of 17, partly cloudy. Friday, high of 23, low of 12, partly cloudy. Saturday, high of 33, low of 29, partly cloudy. Sunday, it's going to rain and snow. High of 42, low of 30. And Monday, high of 46, low of 40. So
I'm looking forward to next week then, if it's going to be just getting hopefully above freezing.
Dude, what a boring weather report. I'm disappointed. Last time we had a blizzard coming in, and times past we've had different ones. It's just partly cloudy every day, so I'm a little bummed by that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the best part of the show.
Yeah, it's the weather report, right? So 2 minutes we give to that, it's the best part.
I'm going to talk about one more thing that that you can't really participate in, Trevor, unfortunately.
Okay. All right.
No, you're fine. But if you have anything to say, go ahead. But I just know you're not a big soccer guy. So I just wanted to mention real quick that one exciting thing is that for the U.S. men's national team, if you're a soccer fan, you follow soccer at all, the U.S. team, Weston McKennie is joining Leeds United from Juventus. Right now he's on a loan, but I think they might be considering making that permanent. Reason this is exciting, Leeds United is turning into Team USA. They already have Jesse Marsh, the only American coach in the Premier League. They already have Tyler Adams, probably, I would say, second best player on the U.S. right now, at least second best performing in the World Cup. They have Brendan Aronson, a really solid attacking piece, and now they have Weston McKennie. I have his U.S. kit. I'm glad I didn't get a Juventus kit because he's gone from there. But overall, I mean, that's going to be fun to watch, fun to see them build some chemistry and hopefully improve together before, I would say, usually I'd say the World Cup, but really the next big thing, assuming they qualify, so I guess I shouldn't assume, but it should be very easy to qualify. You have to be top 6 in North America, and U.S. should be number 1 to qualify for the Copa America. For those not familiar, that is usually a South American tournament, but this time, by the way, it will be in 2024. It will be 10 South American teams and 6 North American teams playing in that. So that will be kind of a really good, fun tournament as the halfway point between the 2 World Cups. Only talking about the men's team, of course. We have the Women's World Cup going on later this year. So yeah, fun stuff going on in club soccer. I'm a Chelsea fan, so I've not been loving this season, but I have been loving all the signings the club has been making recently. But I'll go ahead and let Trevor participate. Trevor, let's go ahead and talk about the Super Bowl.
Right.
Back to what we were saying before, we got Eagles, we got Chiefs. Kind of boring, just the 1 seeds, but at the same time, kind of exciting. The 2 best teams by record in the regular season facing off. What are we going to see in this match?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a game that's going to be, I think 2 really good offenses, obviously. You got Patrick Mahomes against Jalen Hurts. I think both of the quarterbacks, just, highlight reels waiting to happen. Jalen Hurts, I think, is, but it's interesting, too, because both of them kind of battled some injuries, too. Jalen Hurts wasn't quite 100%. Patrick Mahomes wasn't either. So, like I mentioned earlier about the rest and that being an important part of this, I agree with that. I think that's definitely going to be good for both these teams to have a couple weeks or have a week in between the games as well. But I think I was just looking at Isaiah, honestly, right now, just at the line right now. It looks like it's Philadelphia 1.5 is right now. Obviously, that can change.
Philly minus 1.5?
Yeah, Philly minus 1. Yep. Yeah. So, Philly's, favorite, which I think I mentioned earlier, just maybe based on that NFC Championship performance, but like we talked about many different factors in that, including the lack of a quarterback or the lack of a starting quarterback for the 49ers. But yeah,
I'm actually shocked by that, to be honest. I thought the Chiefs would be like 4.5 point favorites. To me, it seems like, I'm not saying it's obvious who's going to win, but it seems like it's obvious who you would expect to win. Am I wrong about that? I feel like the Chiefs have a better team.
Well, no, I think you're right. And then, like we mentioned earlier, too, you can mention just like the Super Bowl experience. Mahomes and Kelsey, that's the 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years versus the Eagles were there in Super Bowl 52, so 5 years ago. But obviously the team has changed a lot since then. Obviously, you had Nick Foles and Frank Reich as the OC, so there are a lot of things have changed from that team from 5 years ago. So that's why I think, based on the experience that the Chiefs have, I'm kind of surprised too, Isaiah, that it started out the line that way. Because I guess when you look at it, obviously it's a neutral side, but it looks like it's Chiefs at Eagles. Like when you look at it, like I'm on the ESPN app right now, and it looks like you can kind of, but obviously, but I had the same record the whole season, 14-3. Both of them were in the season. So, like you said, could be kind of boring on paper, just the both number 1 teams. But obviously, I guess this is the projected matchup. What everyone thought would happen with the 2 number 1 seeds going into the playoffs, getting there. But like we mentioned earlier, the storyline, of course, the Kelsey Bowl, Travis Kelsey, like I mentioned, against Jason Kelsey's brother. But one other thing I think Isaiah mentioned that's interesting is Andy Reid, the coach of the Chiefs.
Wait, hold that thought, Trevor.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't want to get off the betting aspect real quick.
Okay, yeah.
Because I was thinking, I'm looking now on this betting site. I'm really curious. Okay, so you can actually take the Chiefs plus 110 because that's what I'm not 21 yet, so I can't bet. So that's what if I were to bet, that's what I would like to bet on is the actual winner. I don't like doing the spreads. So the fact that you can get Kansas City plus 110, meaning you bet $10 to win 11 or bet $100 to win 110 plus obviously your money back. That seems like a really good deal. I feel like I might take that. If I were 21, of course.
Yeah, well, no, I think, and the thing, too, that's interesting is, like the line can change. I think we saw that even change because I think originally the Bengals were favored early on in the week. I think we talked about last week into going into the conference championship, and then I think it changed to the Chiefs being favored, I think, by 1 or 2 towards the end.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. So I guess, and then with even more time between these 2 games, I think that definitely could change, probably in favor of the Chiefs. I'm guessing is where that line would move to. I don't know. Again, I'm not a betting expert or anything. I just was looking just what the experts think right now, or what Vegas or whoever is saying right now for the line there. But yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting game. I think we'll see. I think we'll probably see a pretty high-scoring game, to be honest, just because of the offenses. But obviously, you look at, again, the Eagles defense had an easier task, but I think they're very good and up to the test, only giving up 7 points there in the championship game versus them. But again, the Chiefs defense giving up 20 to a Mahomes team, or to a Burrow team that I think is really talented too. So I think we'll see high scoring game. Both teams, I think it'll probably come down maybe to one of the last possessions of the game. I think that's what everyone would hope for in a Super Bowl game like that. Obviously a lot of build up to hopefully a good game. I mean, you're going to talk about it for a couple weeks. I'm sure all the sports talk shows, ESPN, everybody's going to be talking about this for a couple weeks. So it'll be interesting to see if we get the result in the biggest game of the season, obviously, see if we can get anywhere close to what we think it'll be like. Because if it's anything like the NFC Championship, it might let us down a little bit if one team gets out to an early advantage, but I think we'll see a competitive game. But although one of the storyline I wanted to mention, Isaiah, before I forgot, is Kelsey Bowl, of course, and and Andy Reid, of course, the coach of the Chiefs back in the day, or before he was the coach of the Chiefs, he was the coach of the Eagles too. So obviously he didn't. A lot of players, probably nobody, is obviously the same. I mean, it was like Deshaun Jackson, those kind of guys back in the day. But it is interesting to have a team that he previously coached to then be coaching against them. So that's just something interesting I thought of too, just that he's coached the Eagles before and now is there with the Chiefs, which he's done a few times already. But I just think it's kind of an interesting storyline since he's probably not played. He's played the Eagles, I'm sure, a couple times since he's left there. But to meet him in a Super Bowl is, I guess, kind of different and interesting, I guess, for him too. Just a different storyline to kind of talk about as well.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, as you were saying, going back to who would win that game, I mean, Jalen Hurts is great, and I would say the Eagles probably have a more well-rounded team than the Chiefs. I think it's pretty. I mean, I think it's pretty much a consensus on that. But I mean, do you really trust Jalen Hurts to win that game as the quarterback? Is the most important position. We know what Mahomes can do, what he will do. He's going to do some good things. I'm not saying he'll be. I mean, who knows if he'll be amazing or not? But he's not. He's going to be good.
Yes.
Versus, I don't think we have as much certainty as with Jalen Hurts. And
no, you're right.
I don't know. I just like the Chiefs in this one. I'm looking at that plus 110. It still looks great. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think the one unit I think as a collective bunch that's really good for the Eagles is the O-line. Obviously, not a lot of people talk about that, but I do think obviously Jason Kelce heading that as the center position. I think they give. I mean, there was one play I remember seeing yesterday, Jalen Hurts. I mean, he had like 7-8 seconds. So I mean, if they can give him time, that just gives him the opportunity to kind of open up the playbook, find his receivers down the field. I mean, of course, you got Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, a lot of targets he has there. But yeah, you mentioned Mahomes. I mean, he's got Travis Kelce. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, he's got so many targets too. So that's what I think is like they both have a bunch of weapons. Mahomes has been there before, so that's why I think I have to agree with you. The advantage would, I mean, I think originally maybe I said the Eagles, but maybe I'm kind of flipping myself now because I feel like I would say the Chiefs because they have the experience. They have Mahomes, of course. He's going to have time to get healthy. So does Jalen Hurts, but because of the experience, in a game like that, experience means so much to either team, but especially for the Chiefs since they've been there, done that before. So that's why I think that the line, obviously in favor of the Eagles, but I think that could change. If it does, it'll change, I think, towards the Chiefs just because of the season that they've had. I think they're on a path again to greatness. They already have, of course, won the AFC, so I think that's why I think they'll have the advantage going into Arizona in a couple weeks for the Super Bowl. Yeah.
All right. Well, we can talk more about the Super Bowl next week since we have to have a 2-week break here. So I'm going to go ahead and end this segment. We're going to talk about some basketball, most notably the Indiana Pacers, when we come back. This is 91.3 WCRD.
Hey, son, how are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it.
When your kid can't find the language, find the lyrics. Start a conversation at soundedouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
If a natural disaster comes knocking, how prepared is your family? You can't just close the door on earthquakes, floods, or hurricanes and hope they go away. That's why it's important to make a plan now. Ready.gov/plan has the tools and tips you need to prepare your family for an emergency. So if disaster shows up at your doorstep, you'll be ready. Visit ready.gov/plan and make a plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
In a world full of boring radio and repetitive podcasts, there is only one WCRD.
Well, we are not boring radio or repetitive podcasts. We are 91.3 WCRD. I'm with Trevor Martin. I'm Isaiah Rosner. We've covered the NFL over this hour, talked about soccer for 5 minutes, gave a weather update, and talked about some Ball State sports. And so now it's time for a team that I would have had a lot more fun talking about 2 weeks ago, the Indiana Pacers. Trevor, you and I are both Pacers fans, right?
Yep, we are. Yep.
So,
for sure.
Yeah, and man, Pacers right now, after last night's loss, they were up by 19 on the Grizzlies. I don't expect them to beat the Grizzlies, but that's just a bummer. They're now 24-28, and they just moved a half game behind the Bulls, meaning the Indiana Pacers are now 11th in the East. They would be out of the play-in game as of today. Man, this team has just struggled so much without Tyrese Haliburton.
They really have, Isaiah, and I think that's just this kind of been the story of the season, like you said. I mean, there was a time, I remember right at the halfway point, and you remember this too, I'm sure, 23-18, right? Lost 7 straight without Tyrese Haliburton. So I think that just shows obviously how important he is, but he can't be the only player. So that's just what's frustrating as a fan, of course, watching is the games have been, relatively close. And I think, Isaiah, that what you have seen as well, right when he goes down, that's the hardest part of our schedule. We already played the Grizzlies a couple weeks ago, lost by 18. The Bucks lost by 13. So we just had some of the best teams in the NBA going up against without our best player, the one down the stretch who has led us late in the fourth quarter. He comes in, obviously a big presence. I think the hometown hero, sort of. He's from Wisconsin, but I think just what he's meant to this team is so much, and I think we have pieces around him. Buddy Hield leads the league in 3-point shots. That's amazing. Miles Turner, of course, like we talked about before he even came on air, he signed a 2-year extension with the Pacers, which we're both very excited about because there was a time when maybe he's going to get traded and stuff, but it's like now he's established himself as one of the better centers. Not the best, obviously, but he can shoot the three. He's great, blocking shots as well. Great presence in the paint. So having him stay with the Pacers is a huge thing, huge motivation for Pacers fans. He loves being in Indy. Pacers fans love having him here. So, yes, like you mentioned, Isaiah, very frustrating part of the season. But I think going forward now, I think we've made it through much of the tough stretch. We got the Lakers coming up, which could be an interesting storyline because of LeBron. I don't know if it'll happen, but he could become the all-time leading scorer in Indianapolis, which would be kind of cool to see. I guess you're always going to remember where LeBron did it, and if he could do it in Indy, that'd be pretty cool because they play, I think, the Knicks tonight and Nets tomorrow. So he'd have 2 games before, and then the third game would be against the Pacers. So we'll see if that happens. That'd be another storyline to mention. Obviously, not I'm not a LeBron fan, but just for history to be happening in Indy would be kind of crazy to think about. But I think we're talking about the schedule. I just think going forward, the Pacers have a much better opportunity against teams that are right around 500 or maybe a few games above teams that the Pacers have had success against this season already. So, and Tyrese, I think hopefully, I was watching some of the game, I believe on Friday night against the Bucks, and it looks like he should hopefully be back by Thursday was the early reports, I think by Jeremiah Johnson, the reporter for the Pacers. There's a chance hopefully he can be back Thursday, maybe Friday. We'll see. Hopefully this sometime this week because the Pacers don't play tonight and don't play the next 2 nights, Isaiah. So it's definitely a crucial time for the Pacers to have a couple of days off to not have a game to hopefully get Tyrese back, maybe get some time under their belt. And they'll have, I think 3 of the next 4 at home. So that's a big thing to be back in Gainbridge Fieldhouse because I actually went to a game a couple days after Christmas and it was just so much fun. The environment was great. We hit 19 threes. Buddy Hield was on fire. It was so fun to see. So I think this team, when they want to and when they're healthy, this team can be very dangerous. Like we mentioned, I think on this season they're all the way up to 4th. I think on the year we have been obviously knocked down like you mentioned to 11th. So not what we want to see right now. But this team I think can hopefully get on the right foot here these next 5-10 games, get back over 500, get back where we need to be, 6th, 7th in the East. Hopefully can still make a move there. But yeah, I think it's definitely been a disappointing stretch like we can both talk about. But hopefully I think there's a brighter side to this. Hopefully going into this month in February, this next month in February and March to kind of make that push hopefully towards a playoff berth.
Yeah, I'm looking now. I wonder if there is an update on Haliburton. Have you heard anything in the last few days?
Well, I really haven't because the thing, I think I actually followed him on Instagram the other day. I think I saw a post that he made that was basically saying soon or like he was going to come back. So I think, and the thing is, you don't see, he never needed a brace, never needed anything like that. He's been getting healthier. I think it was because it was more of like a sore.
I gotta do a live fact check on you, Trevor. Yes. just bad timing, but I just saw this tweet that says Tyrese Haliburton. This is from January 28th, so 2 days ago. Tyrese Haliburton knocking down shots after practice with the brace on his left elbow, which just needs time to heal. So
okay,
so he didn't get a brace, but
no, you're right. Well, and I think because I just saw this post actually, it was just like him like in his the different like street clothes or whatever he's worn at the game, and it was actually from one day ago on his Instagram. He just said back soon. So like you said too, I think that means soon can be obviously a relative term. There's there's no way to know what he exactly means, but I think just hopefully giving
back by the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah, but
no, I don't think we'll be in the playoffs if it takes that long.
No, I know you're right. Well, that's why I think too, just with the schedule we have coming up, like I said before, but I think hopefully I don't know if 2 more days is going to make a difference. Like you said, if he's still in a brace, maybe not by Thursday, but that's at least the hope. But you also don't want to get him out back there too soon. And then I also wonder too, Isaiah, maybe it's just a question for you because I don't know. I remember I think the game afterwards, or I got the update. I don't know if I was watching the game because I'm wondering like what kind of a tumble. I don't even know exactly what happened for an elbow and a knee to happen in the same kind of play or same game. I guess I can't even pinpoint when exactly that was either. So, but
right, yeah, it seems like the knee wasn't that big of a deal. It seems like it's mostly the elbow. But
okay,
either way, it's a bizarre thing to happen and. Yeah, it's interesting also because I feel like when the Pacers had Oladipo, obviously he had that great year where they almost knocked off LeBron. They were the 7th seed, but I would argue, or the 5 seed that year.
I think 5. You're right, 5 seed. Yeah, but it had to go on the road against the Cavs team.
That's right.
Game 7.
But I feel like the Pacers had shot at being the second best team in the East, because I mean they swept both Eastern Conference series after the Pacers that year, so they were great. But anyway, what I'm getting at is then the next year Oladipo went down, and the team did pretty much just as well without him in the regular season. Now in the playoffs, you could tell you needed him back.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting. Then it was like almost like, well, is Oladipo, if you have this good of a player and he doesn't make the team better, is he just holding the team back? Is he actually just not playing? Not saying he's actively making them worse, but maybe he's not like improving the team like he should. Well, now we're kind of in the opposite problem, where now we're wondering, we're like, well, this team has looked great with Tyrese Halliburton, but is it actually that good of a team, or is it just Tyrese making everyone look really good because he's actually that amazing of a player? And if that's the case, then the Pacers, biggest need goes from, me thinking maybe, power forward to maybe no matter what position it is, maybe you just need another scorer.
Yeah, maybe you're right. And I think that's a good point to mention is like, Pacers and, any team, you never want to be in a position of, okay, we need this player to win. And we didn't think we were in that position until he goes down. And then you realize we've only won, I think, one game since then, right? Like, 1 in 10 or something. So it's just crazy to think about how important and crucial he is to the team itself, obviously. And that's just where it goes back to, but I guess it goes back to my point. I mean, I feel like it's not like, we're like you mentioned earlier, quarterback, most important position on the football field. If you don't have a good quarterback, then yeah, your team's going to suffer. But I feel like, there's 5 guys on the floor. I mean, we still have, Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, but I know you need that center point. I mean, it's kind of like, but I feel like he's kind of a non-traditional point guard. Yeah, he's a point guard, but he's also, 6'5", can really shoot the ball well too. So that's why I think it's interesting how, like, when we had Malcolm Brogdon, he was, obviously he's doing well at the Celtics now too, but like, he was kind of more of that traditional point guard. Whereas I feel like, and I didn't know that now, like TJ McConnell has kind of come in to be like our starting point guard now too. Not to say that Tyrese isn't, because I think he really is solid, but I think if you could maybe, we don't need anybody else, but like, I feel like he's almost more like traditional sort of 2. I mean, he can play the 1. I think
I don't know if I'd actually I agree with almost all that, but I don't know if I'd call Malcolm Brogdon a traditional point guard because I feel like
I think you're right.
I feel like he wasn't that good at playmaking. He was more of a shooter too.
I think you're right, and that's why I think too he's just kind of a compliment to that Celtics team. Obviously, I mean they have Jaylen Brown, they have Jason Tatum. They mean that he's as a compliment to them.
He's actually like a perfect sixth man. It makes perfect sense to have him.
It does.
And actually, when he was on the Pacers, I kind of always wanted him to be the shooting guard. I wanted to get it would be interesting to see him with Halliburton, but we don't need him. We have Mathurin now, or we have Buddy Hield.
And that's what I think too. I mean, I saw a stat the other day. He is, I think, in like NBA history, he has the most, I think, points off the bench, like scoring 20 or more points. I mean, even more, I think, or he averages the most, I think, coming off the bench.
Benedict Mathurin?
Yeah, Benedict Mathurin.
Yeah. So what is it? It's like for any player's entire career, he has the highest average points.
Yeah, it was
like kind of funny, and it's minimum 30 games, which is kind of funny because like he'll probably go down as his career goes on. But hey, if he doesn't play that off the bench very much in his career, then I guess he could.
True. I mean, it's kind of interesting too because I mean could be a compliment to the starting lineup, but I guess it's kind of like like last year. Remember, I mean, maybe not the same amount of energy, but like when Lance Stevenson was on the bench last year. I mean, he obviously was always on the bench because he would just bring that energy and that juice every time he came off the bench. But I think with Mathurin, it's like he's that rookie who came from Arizona. We knew. I mean, he had a good college career. I was hopeful he would do well. I mean, what was he, the 6th pick I believe in the draft we had last year? So it's
not sure.
I believe so.
Oh wait, Mathurin?
Yeah, Mathurin. I think it was. Yeah, I knew it was top 10.
I don't know. I was thinking. Yeah, he was number 6.
Yeah. So I think that's like you expect a lot from a first round draft pick, but I think for what he's done and meant to this team has been huge as well. But I think that maybe a lot, like you mentioned earlier. I mean, we both talked about. I think maybe lacking the leadership that Tyrese has brought, which is kind of crazy because you think the Kings were not willing to give him up, but pretty easily. I mean, we obviously got rid of Sabonis, which maybe is a little bit hurt us a little bit, but I think still Miles Turner has stepped up into even a bigger role than he's served in years past or seasons past. So that's why I think that just again speaks to how crucial that Tyrese Halliburton means to this team and what he means. But I think this team, like I said earlier, with the schedule, I think that coming up, I think this team can get back on the right foot. I think, again, being at home, I mean, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, like I said earlier, it's just a great place to play an environment that the fans get into it. And I think even, the season, the last few games that we've had, just fans can kind of go away. But I think in this long of a season, there's still so many games left, 30 games left we have in the season. So there's so much hope, I think, still left for this team. It's going to have to come in bunches and start to kind of win. I think it's going to take 1 or 2 wins at a time. And if we can get those in a row, then hopefully kind of start that winning streak, which we're going to need to have, obviously, against. But I think we still have, plenty of games against teams ahead of us. The Cavs, I know we play, I think, on Sunday. And just a lot of other games coming up that are going to be so crucial to be able to get us up, move them down. Kind of a lot of moving there, I think, is going to have to happen for this team to have success. But I think we'll be able to do that going forward if we can just have success against these teams we have coming up, which, again, no discredit to them because they're really good teams, but we're going to have to win those, especially at home, to be able to get in better position to hopefully make the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just don't know what to think about the team right now. It's like I guess Mathurin, he has been good, but they just can't close games, and they just don't have that closer right now. I mean, Buddy's really a shooter, but he's not a guy you want to give the ball to dribble around, to make the last shot. Mathurin just hasn't. I mean, he made a clutch shot recently in that one win against who was it? Could be beat.
The Bulls was last. That was a really good. I remember I was at the Bulls stadium last Tuesday, but that was like we were down 21, and that's a game like you mentioned. It's like down 21, I believe, in that game, and then to come back and win that one, I think by 6 it was. I remember watching that after I got back from the Ball State game, and it was just like I was hopeful and I thought we could do it, but it's like we need to see more of that kind of team that can be down by that much. We don't want to see us down, but then to be able to battle back and get back to a win like that against a team, obviously a division opponent in the Bulls as well. It's definitely a crucial win at that stretch, but I think. And somebody I think to mention that I just really love watching you. I mean, maybe you feel the same as TJ McConnell. I know he's like was he 30 years old? He's been a kind of vet in the league, but I just love seeing him play. I think I one time heard a video. He's like, "What's your favorite?" Or someone asked him, "What's your favorite animal?" And he said, "Like the Tasmanian devil." He goes, "Because I think that's kind of like how I play, And I think I agree with that because he's kind of that smaller guard, shorter guy, but he just get after it. He'll just get after you, get steals. I remember I think there was one game a season or two ago where he literally had a double with points and steals, and the steals he got in the first half. I mean, isn't that astounding to get 10 steals in one half? I mean, that was obviously just one example of one game, but I just think he's able to be aggressive and get in the heads of the offense. And I think down the stretch you need somebody who in close situations, close games down the stretch, if you can get that big steal to get the ball back or get a big rebound or he can make some shots too. Obviously he's more of a facilitator and can assist the ball really well. But when he needs to make a big shot, he can kind of dribble around and get a good shot or good fake there and too as well. So I think he's somebody to point out that has really done a solid job for us most of the season. And he's obviously had to come into a starting role. He's usually coming off the bench, but with Tyrese being out, I think he's really stepped into that starting role, which he hasn't really been familiar with. I think throughout his career, he's really always been that guy who's come off the bench, but now he's kind of stepped up into a bigger role. I think he likes being part of the Pacers organization, and I think Rick Carlisle, I know the coach. I think I heard an interview earlier in the season. He just said he loves this team and just how close knit they are. Obviously, a pretty solid core of young players on this team too. So I think he loves coaching this team. The team kind of loves the camaraderie that they bring with them every single game. So I think it's a fun team to watch for sure. I think I heard a thing actually. Isaiah, we talked about Mark Boyle before. I remember he heard a thing. I was actually listening to the post game after that Pacers game I went to. I think it was December 29th, and he was kind of talking about kind of like a poem or something with the Pacers. He was like, sometimes we stink, sometimes we're great, but we're always going to have a fun time. We're always going to be a fun team to watch. So I think that's a very true statement. Sometimes we stink, which maybe a little bit right now. Sometimes we're really fun to watch, and all the times we're just out there for a good time, and it's always fun to watch this team play. So that's what I think is interesting about this team. They're built for success, got the young core players, and I think maybe even going into the season, Isaiah, you might have felt the same. I thought, maybe give us a couple years, Mather, and who knows? But it's like now, I think we kind of have that win now mentality. We got a team that's, yes, we got a young core, but who's to say you need somebody like LeBron who's been in the league for a long time, or player who's been there for a long time. If we can have solid core players, they're young, they get them down the floor quick. If you can have that kind of talent to start, that's a great way to have a team and can be built for success. I mean, maybe not as high a seed as you want, but to be able to make the playoffs, hopefully in the top 6, you don't have to do the play-in. That's the goal for this team. And I think my original goal was maybe 50 wins, which maybe seems a little out of reach now, but hopefully at least 500 or maybe 45 wins. We'll see if that can happen.
I would even say saying 6 is a little lofty of a goal. I mean, sitting at 11 right now, my goal for the team is just to make the playoffs. Whether you do it as a 10 seed from the play-in or as the 6 or whatever, or make the playoffs and don't get swept. I don't want another bubble playoff where you just go in there and can't win a game. I mean, you got to win at least one game. I mean, of course, winning a series would be great, but I'd say I'd feel okay about the season if they make the playoffs, get a win for confidence, and then get ready to build back with a better developing Mather and a developing Neesmith. Halliburton hopefully getting even better, and then some new piece at power forward to complement everyone.
I agree, because the one player I guess to mention is Jalen Smith has had a good season, of course, but I think maybe needing somebody maybe from college this year, maybe somebody. But like you said, if we get I guess a better season, which we hope for, then I guess you wouldn't have the lottery pick or a high draft pick, which I don't think the Pacers need that because you can find somebody. There's only 60 draft picks in the entire draft, so you can find somebody for the Pacers and maybe just that one maybe key missing piece, another young, like you mentioned, a power forward. No discredit to Jalen Smith. I think he is a really good power forward. Maybe just somebody else, kind of some center depth and power forward depth. I think that's something this team needs. I think we're plenty guards. Duarte and McConnell. We got plenty of guards. I just think it's that power forward, maybe even backup center. I mean, we got Goga, I guess too, but just
Goga. I prefer Isaiah Jackson over.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think Isaiah Jackson is definitely the much better pick there. So, like you mentioned, I think maybe just one more piece, one more a little bit more depth on this team. But yeah, I think this team may be one or two pieces away from hopefully even making a better run. But like you said, I think this team can hopefully even if it's play-in, make the playoffs, maybe even win a play-in game so you can get to the official playoffs, the top 8 teams, and then be able to hopefully compete in a series, maybe not win it, but at least win a game or two, and hopefully can build for this team like you mentioned going into next year for sure.
My big thing is I want a forward that can play defense. That's what they don't really have. I mean, Neesmith is probably the best defender, but no one besides him, and he's kind of undersized for a forward. He's 6'5", so they need a power forward. Obviously, the ideal player for this spot Well, I guess the ideal would be like Giannis Antetokounmpo, but the slightly more realistic is OG Anunoby. But even that, it's looking like it's not going to happen. There are rumors the Pacers may have offered 2 first-round picks for him, and it was denied. We know some team offered 2 first-rounders and it denied. It definitely might have been the Pacers.
Might have, yeah. Well, I think
so that's out of reach.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you there. Well, I think just since you mentioned, obviously just playing defense, but I think it just goes back to obviously just rebounding. And I know, for example, the game against the Bucks, on Sunday or Friday, the game before the Grizzlies game, 141 points. I mean, obviously they have Giannis, they got a lot of key pieces there, but it's like for a team to give up 85 points in the first half, 141. I mean, you'd have to, and we actually scored 131, so we were close to even coming out with a win in that one, only losing by 10.
Yeah, 43 points in the third quarter for the Pacers.
Yeah, so that's an astounding quarter. But it's like I think you just look at. It's just the ability to rebound. Because I think, and nothing against Miles Turner, but especially offensively, he's out there shooting threes. Who's in there to rebound? There's nobody, right? I mean, he's out there shooting. He's going to get back on defense. So I think it's a matter of rebounding on both sides of the ball. That's one key thing. This team gets out-rebounded almost every game, I feel like, or at least sometimes it's maybe within 5 or 10, but usually it's just not a close battle on the boards, and that's why teams have success in the NBA. It's the effort.
Leading rebounds for the Pacers that game, number 1. Wait, who do you think our top rebounder was against the Bucks?
I don't know. I mean, I would say Miles, but I feel like that's not right.
Nope, wrong. Keep guessing.
Isaiah Jackson?
Nope.
Jalen Smith?
Nope.
Let's see who else. Buddy Hield wouldn't be Buddy, I don't think.
He was closely at 5.
Duarte.
Nope,
McConnell?
Duarte at 4. McConnell at 6, but no.
Oh, wow. I mean,
Benedict Mathurin, 8 rebounds.
So no one even, I mean, you don't need almost a double-figure rebounder.
21 points, 8 rebounds, and 0 assists for Mathurin that game.
Wow. I mean, so yeah, I have the points. I mean, that's the thing. We can always count on him for points, but yeah, I just think the team just needs to have that maybe, and again, it could be Miles, it could be somebody else, but just have a solid rebounder every, maybe, not that Miles shouldn't shoot more. I mean, he's a good shooter when they go in, but sometimes when they don't, it's like he's got to get back on defense.
Right. Well, and also, I feel like the bigger problem is defensive rebounding, but Miles,
I agree,
and he's in there blocking shots, so he's not going to get
you can't expect a team to get a lot of offensive rebounds too. I think defensive rebound, you just got to quit the second chance points and getting those other opportunities for teams. I think that's something that's got to slow down for the Pacers team to have success down the stretch. You got to be able to rebound for sure.
All right, well, I think we're a little bit over, so we're going to have to go ahead and sign off here. But thank you for listening. This is the 3 Levels of Football. He's Trevor Martin. I'm Isaiah Rosner. This is 91.3 WCRD.
Boring radio and repetitive podcasts. There is only one